I'm always a bit sus when it comes to certain type of anime recommendations. These tend to be opinions masked as bold statements with one superlative, such as the greatest, most absurd, funniest, edgiest, or saddest. Wait, who put that there? There is nothing wrong with that, it's just an opinion and it doesn't need to be any more than that. You think Konosuba is the funniest shit ever? Then you're in luck, because that's not what I have a beef with. I have a beef with more sweeping statements. Take for example the topic of this video for instance. Grimgar Ashes and Illusions has been called both most realistic isekai and a deconstruction of the entire isekai genre. This is what piqued my interest and I decided to give it a go. And see if my long-held belief people call it realistic because of that one monster fight during the second episode, and I bet it's generic isekai romp for the rest, holds true. So let's see if Grimgar keeps my fantasy going, or if I'm caught in a landslide when my smug face gets wiped off for being presumptuous. Spoilers for the whole 12-episode season from Grimgar from here on out. You have been warned. Now we will come back to the most realistic part of the show, but after knowing only one thing about Grimgar before watching it for this video, I can safely say that it's not a deconstruction, and it confirms my suspicion that people who use deconstruction in anime discussions just mean they like a show in a genre that they're not familiar with. No, you see, Eva is a deconstruction of the mecha genre because it's about pilots and not the big robots, they said, with their ignorance shining brightly, blinding everyone around them. Grimgar plays its isekai setting proudly on its sleeve, even if that sleeve is almost non-existent, since it rarely comes up after the first few episodes. This might be because the anime adapts only the first 2 volumes out of 19 and ongoing. Jesus, why doesn't this have a second season? I should establish what I mean when I call fantasy realistic. You might be making the obvious remark, fantasy is inherently unrealistic, but I partly reject that. There is a way to depict realistic characters, politics, emotions, interactions in a fantasy world filled with knights and wizards, and for a fantasy isekai, I think Grimgar does it surprisingly well. Now I could nitpick and point out unrealistic shit in Grimgar, and I will, right now. This dude should have his wound checked, or there is going to be a nasty infection. My Rimworld characters wouldn't make it past supper. The female characters' outfits are out of this world. How can you hike in the woods with that outfit and not get cuts and bug bites all over you? And man, the camera is really horny. And I will come back to the horny cameraman and one of the main characters and beat some sense to them. But I do want to focus on what Grimgar does really well, and that is depicting characters making the right and wrong choices based on their past experiences, their inexperience in medieval combat, and their planning for their future in this fantasy world they have found themselves in. So let's start with the part you most likely know about, when our party takes out the first monster and move on from there. Now if you're like me and are a bit suspect about if the goblin fight lives up to the expectation, then I'm here to tell you that it totally does. You get the taste of it in the first episode, but the real deal is during the second episode. It's also why I didn't include Grimgar in my last video. I think people remember the second episode more than any other episode. And the fight itself, oh boy, it's exhilarating and exhausting. Our isekai party's inexperience really shows here, and it feels grounded in reality. The goblin goes from showing off to letting out shrieks of pain as it realizes that it's about to bite it. When everything seems over and we get some rest, the battle resumes with more desperation from both sides. And after it's finally all over, our characters are not the same. They have taken life from another sentient being and they need time to process that. The only thing I didn't like about it was that the show over-explains the action, especially in the first episode, when the action speaks for itself, but that's a nitpick and doesn't ruin the moment at all. This is an important moment that leads to natural escalation in our party's rising competence for the entire season. And do you want to know something even more remarkable? This episode doesn't even make it into my top 3 episodes for this season. This show is a contender for my favorite isekai anime, and it would have been easily at the top, if not for a couple of smudges in its perfect armor. And those are the previously mentioned horny cameraman and one of the main characters, Ranta. Ranta actually means beach in Finnish, which is fitting, since I do not want to see a beach episode with this character in it. Like I get what Ranta is supposed to be. He got transported as he was watching Sigma male TikToks and is clearly insecure about himself, lashing out and insulting others and trying to peep on our female party members. The main problem is that even if we take it at face value, it's still a tired character trope that to the show's credit could have been played much worse. But don't mistake that for praise, since it does fall flat. There is a lot of insecurity in all of these characters, and to draw a bit of a comparison to Shihoru, a character I didn't care much for either, who also has a very familiar female character trait of low self-esteem. But at least it's not as insulting as Ranta's antics. Whenever Ranta tries to act his pervert tendencies, the show's quality dips massively, and I won't be surprised if some people write it off purely based on that. You could also forgive Ranta if that was the only perversion this show has, but the show's director and the cameraman were jerking each other off with these shots of Yume. It's jarring when you have our characters skulking around and the camera is fixated on Yume's ass, and while the entire series is mostly played from Haruhiro's perspective, it does not excuse most of these shots. I was thinking if I could write Grimgar's fanservice as equal opportunity, since there are few examples I could use for a female eye candy, especially during the opening when all the cast are wearing this skin-tight bodysuit and design of this disaster, but no, that would be dishonest. Before we jump off to talking about the absolute best parts, I want to put it out there that this adventuring party feels more like a hunting party. And the show is surprisingly chill and melancholic most of its runtime. The town feels warm and welcoming, and this helps to juxtapose the visceral combat and the adventuring, and it fits the show really well. The party also reminds me a lot of Final Fantasy parties, especially at this shot during the opening. I ranted about the fanservice, but I don't really have that many issues with their design. For suppose realism, their designs vary from makes sense, okay I guess, and that doesn't seem very comfortable to take a battle with. And why doesn't anyone wear helmets? What's up with that? Are they stupid? Still the focus on hunt for food and clothing feels very realistic, and I'm glad that's a cost of doing business for our party. So in episode 4, when our group has gotten experience and have taken down multiple goblins with increasing skill, they get ambushed by a prepared goblin group that, to our party's credit, realize they're way in over their heads and try to flee. In this desperate escape, our healer and leader, Manato, gets shot and our party rushes to the church to get him healed. But it's too late. Manato has succumbed to his wounds and the episode ends in disbelief. What follows is an absolutely stellar series of episodes from 5 to 8, and for my money, the best part of this entire season. Episode 5 especially is full of wide range of emotions as our party members grieve and cope with the new reality that the ever-reliable Manato will never come back. It's filled with heated arguments, emotional outbursts, and denial and reassurance. For Haruhiro especially, who has to take the mantle of leadership, and he really struggles with this. He is not a natural leader like Manato and has to learn as he goes on, and he does clash with few members, mainly Ranta, but in a good way. One good example is that Manato is even more concerned about everyone's well-being and makes a mention that the party tank doesn't have a helmet. Hey look, they didn't forget about helmets. Are they smart? They would rather spend more time on their humble cottage, but the party has to eat. And after laying Manato's ashes to rest, and that is a plot point for the later, they get a new priest to join their party named Mary. Mary feels cold and distant to our tight-knit group, especially when they part ways after a hunt. But that is with a good reason. First she seems like a mercenary that is just clocking to her 9 to 5, but as we learn about her in the following episodes, it turns out that she was one of 2 surviving members of her previous party, where their front line got killed by a strong kobold spots in Cyrene mines. It is cliché, our party loses a priest, so they find a priest that lost everyone else, but it works here. While Ranta keeps being the worst, the rest of the party realizes that hey, we could actually talk this out with Mary and try to be more welcoming. Can you imagine that? Communicating and sharing your feelings with others can help you solve your problems. I love this. And when Mary skips alone happily away from her new party, I was so hyped that I almost let out audible Fuck yeah, that's some good shit. During episode 8, they take the fight to the goblin group that wiped them out earlier. And I have to say it here, I love that Grimgar shows that these goblins are having some casual mingling with each other, playing games and fooling around. This doesn't help the goblins though, as they are absolutely blasted by our party and letting our party put their grief to rest when they return Manato's staff to his grave. You could have ended the series here, and I would have been more than happy. But there are still some threads loose, mainly Mary's character arc. Rest of the season is mostly spent on focusing on her and her struggles. Our party hears about the Siren mines and about one particular kobold dead spots. That triggers a panic attack on Mary and it feels realistic. The loud breathing, sweat on her face and excusing herself to go and struggle alone. But thankfully Manato follows her. Also, rest of our party has learned some empathy and decide to help Mary to put her demons to rest and decide to take on the mines. The season ends very fittingly, with Mary laying her ex-party members to rest, Ranta having some character development, keyword some, and our party takes out the kobold dead spots, which I could say was a bit underwhelming how the battle ended, but it didn't ruin the ending for me at all. I won't spoil that for you, go see it for yourself, and you should definitely go and watch Grimgar Ashes and Illusions. It was an absolute delight, and I can't recommend it enough. The slower pace really works for the story, and if you have been enjoying the fantasy Soson Frieren has been giving, then you should definitely give Grimgar a shot. I still don't know why there ain't no second season though. From what I have gathered, it sold decent amount and did boost light novel sales at least somewhat. Not earth-shattering, but okay sales. It's a shame, since I would love to see more, but I guess A1 Pictures is busy printing money, so can't really take a chance with a middling success. I guess that's the most realistic aspect of Grimgar. Thank you for watching and subscribe for more garbage.